Welcome to another episode of Between Two Dots, brought to you by Intention Media, where we interview guests and learn more about their story and how they are living an intentional life. On today's podcast, we are joined by Jess Tetu. Jess is a nationally recognized entrepreneur and philanthropist who has overcome adversity to build an inspiring career in business and community service. Leaving her home at the age of 15, she relied on resilience, hard work, and determination to create a legacy of success. Today, Jess is known for her leadership in beauty and wellness, as well as her dedication to philanthropy and mentorship. Her influence spans multiple industries, making her a sought-after speaker and business leader. In addition to her business ventures, Jess is deeply committed to mentorship and professional development. She actively supports young entrepreneurs and professionals through speaking engagements, workshops, and strategic guidance. Her ability to blend business acumen with heartfelt storytelling makes her an influential voice in leadership, personal growth, and perseverance. Jess is dedicated to empowering others to turn challenges into opportunities, much as she has done in her own journey. This was a great conversation with Jess. I've heard her speak a few times, and I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. Please join me in welcoming Jess Tetu to the podcast. Hi, Jess. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. Where are you taking the call from today?
I'm in Saskatoon, which is my home base. Not often here, but I'm at home right now, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's probably pretty wild as it relates to how things have evolved and the fact that, a big part of your career and job involves travel now. So that's probably been the case for a few years now, right?
Yeah, I think the more I've expanded the business, and the more I've become a public speaker, the more I'm on the road. But it it takes its toll, honestly, more in the winter months when I'm like on those like blizzardy roads. But you just kind of get used to it. It's just kind of part of the job. So I'm just like so used to it at this point. It doesn't really bother me much anymore.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm really happy that you were able to make the time and we can get you on the podcast. I have had the pleasure of hearing you speak a couple times, once at the Women in Wealth Gala,
Right.
and also at the Alberta Women's Entrepreneurs Summit, which I currently sit as a board member.
Right. Yeah, that was amazing. I loved that event. It was so good.
Yeah.
A great experience.
Well, you mentioned Saskatoon is your home base,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe that's a great segue. Saskatoon, was that where you were kind of born and raised?
No, so I was born and raised in a little town named Craik. It's halfway between Regina and Saskatoon, tiny little town. I think there's like 400 people max. I think it's actually less than that even now. And I lived there till I was 15, and then I moved to Saskatoon at 15, and then just kind of have been here ever since. I mean, I'm all over the place all the time, but home base is Saskatoon. Yeah.
Yeah. And Craig, is it Craig?
Craig with a K. Everybody says Craig.
Craig.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Craig.
How was that like growing up there? You're talking about like maybe 400 people and less now, but living there for the first 15 years of life, I imagine everyone knew everyone, right?
Everybody knew everybody, and I mean, you knew everybody who knew everybody who knew. I mean, you knew everyone inside and out. You couldn't do anything without everybody knowing where you were and what was happening. But growing up there, I didn't know any different, so it was just normal. What was really big for me was the change was when I came to a big city in Saskatoon, coming from a town of 400 people. I think there was 100 kids in our entire school from kindergarten to grade 12. So it was a very small school. So coming to Saskatoon, and then I moved here in the summer of grade 10. And so then I became a student of like 103 or 350 or 375 or something crazy in my class. So that was a big shock for me. It was a big, big change. And then all of a sudden kind of being invisible, if that makes sense. Going from a town where everybody knew, they knew my teachers taught me, they taught my parents, like it was that small of a community. And then I was a student number and nobody knew who I was. Nobody even noticed if I was missing a day. Like it was just such a big change. So now when I go back to my hometown, there's like things about it that I miss, like the like quiet and the calm that you don't see in the city. But I'm certainly, I fit in more in a big city where there's like, the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, absolutely. And just painting the picture in this small town, was it kind of more characterized by like kind of rural, like acreages and that sort of stuff? Or was there kind of like a main street and, like one of each thing, that sort of scenario?
There was a main street. There was like, I think one gas station, maybe two gas stations. There was a grocery store, like post office, and like that's kind of library. That's kind of it. But the majority of the town is like a farming community. And so most of the kids rode the bus to school every day. I lived in town, so I just walked to school, but my dad worked in a farming equipment shop. So he knew all the farmers. I knew all the farmers' kids just from school. But I mean, it was a beautiful community and very, very tight knit community. Had a lot of relatives there, a lot of family that different generations had just stayed and built their families there as well. And so my dad is no longer with us, but I still try to go home. I still consider it home, even though I'm 43 and I live in Saskatoon since I was 15. So I've been here longer, but I still consider it home. There's just a piece of me that'll always be there. And so I try to go home and visit, friends and family once or twice a year if I can, and try to do some fundraising and things to help bring some money back to the community if I can, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's wonderful. And growing up, did you have any siblings, and where did you stack up in terms of like oldest, youngest, middle, that sort of thing?
I'm the middle child. So my sister's a couple of years older than me and my brother was 5 years younger than me. So close enough that my sister and I fought a lot, but close enough that we were still really tight. And then my little brother he was quite a bit younger than me. So my sister and I always kind of felt like mother hens over him a little bit. But like I said, we were only there till I was 15. And then I came to Saskatoon. So, and then I was on my own when I came to Saskatoon. So it's kind of a blur, looking back now, because it's been so long and it feels like a lifetime ago. It was a lifetime ago. But I mean, that it's still home to me. I think it'll always just have a piece of my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving to Saskatoon, just circumstances around that, what kind of prompted that? Was that something that was kind of the logical next step, just given proximity and what you wanted to get involved in?
No, I mean, without getting into my whole entire journey, which is a very long journey, but long story short of it is my dad struggled really bad with addictions. And so we were in and out of women's shelters quite a bit when we were kids, and his addiction was really, really aggressive. And so it was a pretty uncomfortable is a kind word to say it. Few years in there before we moved. The final reason we actually did move to Saskatoon is we actually lost our home. My parents just couldn't pay the bills, and they were splitting and fighting, and it was kind of like World War III between them at the time. And I just felt really lost and really didn't know where to go or what to do. And so I just got on a bus and came to Saskatoon and stayed with a friend until I could kind of get my feet on the ground, got a job, working at a hockey rink, and registered in school. And school was just something that was like a non-negotiable for me. Like my dad always said, like, if you don't have education, you have to finish grade 12. If you don't have education, life's going to be, so much harder on you in every way. And so I registered myself in school, but got myself an apartment. I had to lie. And I said I was 18 so I could get an apartment, because no one rents to 15-year-olds. I couldn't drive. So I walked to school, and I finished school on time, but it was just really, really difficult to not only go from being this child in a small town where everybody knew you to becoming this still child, but living an adult life in a city where you were kind of invisible. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody even noticed that there was a new girl in the class, because it was like, 50 new girls in the class each year. And so it was just a really difficult transition, but it was kind of my only option. So I don't even really remember thinking anything other than just like one day at a time. And my dad at that point was still really, really struggling. So I now have learned it's called enabling. At the time, I didn't know that. And so I became kind of his sole provider. And so I was taking care of him for a lot of that time through high school, and just with the goal of like, you know, focus on school, try to do your best, get a job, work hard, you know, survive. And I certainly never had any intention on doing the things that I've done now. I never intended to own multiple businesses. I never intended to become a public speaker. I couldn't even order pizza. I had such bad social anxiety. I remember walking into this class of like, you know, 50 kids or something and just being like, oh my God, terrified, because I was so sheltered in this small town that I didn't know how to have those like social experiences. And so it was just such a shock to my system, but it was kind of something I just didn't really have an option. People often ask me like, well, how did you know to do this? Or how did you know to do that? And I just didn't, I just winged it because it was survival. Like it was just kind of what I did. Yeah. But yeah, those years are a bit of a blur. I mean, I review them now often because I talk about it on stage a lot, but yeah, it was really difficult those first few years in Saskatoon.
Yeah. It was kind of putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Just obviously that's a lot. That's a lot for anyone, let alone a 15-year-old. And as a result, like what kind of student were you? And obviously there's so many moving parts and that sort of stuff, but were you pretty regimented? Did you get good grades?
I was so preoccupied with taking care of my dad that it really, and working. Keep in mind, I worked every day from like 2 o'clock until like 1 in the morning. So the cool thing about going to a small town school is when you took like math, for example, I took like math 20 and 30 as one class. So then when I transitioned to Saskatoon, I had so many credits already that I was able to take a whole bunch of spares and end my day earlier, which was ideal because then I could work. So I'd work until like 1 in the morning, lots of nights, just so I could pay my rent and food and live. And I was also paying for my dad, and he didn't live with me. I didn't let him live with me, but I did help pay for him. But it, and in terms of being a student, I mean, I just did the best I could. I certainly look back and think, how did I pass, even knowing what I was carrying and what was going on at the time? It's shocking to me. However, I do believe that the education I received in my small town really is what did it for me, because we were so far ahead, especially in like things like math. I had learned, you know, math 30 class studies in grade 10. So by the time I was in math 30, it was like a breeze, right? So I felt like I had that advantage, which was fantastic. And I give so much credit to the teachers in my hometown because they were just so helpful. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't had that, because it certainly made it easier for me. But I mean, my marks, I mean, I was like a high 70s, is what I kind of graduated with, which certainly is not what I would strive for. But in the grand scheme of what was going on in my world, I think it was pretty decent. But it was just a blur those years of getting to school. I don't know how I passed, other than, you know, just like I said, having that kind of knowledge from my hometown kind of got me through, or pushed me through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, giving yourself grace. There's a lot that you're holding.
And you certainly don't get the one-on-one that I did in my hometown. If I was struggling in math or struggling in English or something, I mean, the teacher knew you. You could call them at home and they would walk you through it, right? Like there was 10, 12 students in your class. So you got a lot of that teacher's one-on-one time. And that just didn't happen in the city. If you struggled, I mean, they didn't even know. I mean, I don't, there was days I missed. I don't think they even noticed that I wasn't there. And they certainly didn't notice that I was a kid in this position. I remember a teacher asking me one time, she thought I looked really tired and said like I had bags under my eyes because I'd been up with my dad, who had been in the hospital the night before. He had essentially OD'd, but had survived it. And so I was at the hospital all night, and then I taxied to school in the morning. And I remember her saying like she thought I'd been out partying. Like she assumed and accused me of like, you know, you need to pay more attention to your studies. Like you're never going to go anywhere in life. And like, just so accusatory, instead of like saying like, are you okay? And I often think about that when I'm talking at high schools, because I try to remind the teachers, like, look a little deeper, because you just were so quick to assume that I was like a party girl, when really it was like, you know, all hell was breaking loose in my world. And I often wonder, like, what would have maybe been done differently had they, would I have shared it? Would they have helped me? I don't know. You know, like, I can't guess now, but I often wonder, if they just would have dug a little deeper, if I would have, like, you know, poured my heart out and told them what was actually going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I and you know, you kind of alluded to it in terms of like owning and operating multiple businesses. Um, did you have like an entrepreneurial inkling and inspiration in your life? Did you see other entrepreneurs? Like, how did that happen? And
I didn't. However, I was born an entrepreneur, because when I was little, there were so many different things that I did. So when I was a kid, I used to go to my dad's shop, and I would always like make displays and stuff, like out of all of the like supplies and stuff. But there was a couple of other times where I like, it's so funny to think about. It's so ridiculous. But I offered like cleaning and yard services around town. I was maybe like 10. But I was so scared I couldn't call people. And there was like no social media. There was no like Facebook, you know, nothing like that. Now, so I recorded on an old school tape recorder myself saying, like, do you need your yard raked? Like, do you need your vacuum, your living room vacuumed and dusted? Do you need laundry done? Like, I'm your girl, you know, and I'd record it. And then I'd open the phone book and I'd call the number, and I was so scared I would just like play the recording to the phone and then hang up, because I couldn't talk to the person. And then they'd call back, and like my mom or my dad would answer and be like, sure, she can come on Thursday at 5 p.m. and wash your floors, you know? And so I was so young, and I was already thinking with such an entrepreneurial mind then, that it is no surprise to me now that I would become, you know, my own boss and own businesses and things, because I just always kind of visualized myself in that role of like being my own boss and like doing something cool, but never to the extent that I'm in, obviously. And it kind of happened. It just, life happened, and it just kind of, sometimes the universe just puts you on the right path, and you have choices to make. And I made those choices, and it led me where I am now.
oh, absolutely. So what was your first business, and how did you get into it?
So after college, so after I graduated, I went on to college. I ended up getting married and having a baby. That situation was really, really not good. It was very, very violent. And there was a lot of domestic abuse. And so I ended up, for the second time in my life, basically leaving with like the clothes on my back. Meanwhile, I was working at this little spa, day spa. It was really small. There was like a handful of employees, but it helped me through that transition of my life. And it was never a goal to work there long term. It was just something to do part time. I had taken executive assistant and had been assistant in college, and I wanted to be a lawyer. I'd taken a paralegal course. So that was my goal. I was like, someday I'm going to be a lawyer, but for now, I'll just take the spa job. It's great. But during that transition of being a single mom and going through this, like, basically starting over again with nothing, because I left everything and left in the middle of the night. And the customers and the clients and the way I felt in that business was something I'd never experienced before. And I just fell in love with it, being able to like know what was going on in my world, and having somebody come in and being able to like smile at them and be kind to them, and watching their whole day turn around. I just fell in love with knowing the impact you could have on someone, even in something as little as going for a spa treatment. And so I just fell in love with it, and it got me through that hard time. And the more I did it, the more I loved it, and the more it just felt right. So then an opportunity came along for me to go work alongside a judge as like their admin assistant, kind of legal assistant. And I had my resignation letter written up, and I was going to quit. And I remember sitting at the red light, and I think about this all the time now because it's my business I own now. But at the time I was just working there. I was part-time. I worked evenings and weekends, and I had my resignation letter, and I was going to quit to go work. It was like triple the money, way better opportunity, you know, as in terms of a career, like a real grown-up job. And I think about this all the time, sitting at that red light going, today's going to be my last day. And I was like, how am I, or like my last day, like giving notice, of course I gave notice, but it was like my last week or two. And I just remember like being heartbroken and thinking, I don't know how I'm going to live without getting to do this every day. And so I went in and I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I chickened out and didn't do it because it didn't feel right. And then I was like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And then I'm like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And then I just had this client come in, and it was, no one really spectacular, any different than any other client. And I just was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it didn't make sense on paper to turn down this opportunity to stay at this job. So I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I went to the owner, and instead of quitting and resigning, I basically said, like, I got offered this other job. It's a really good opportunity. Is there any room for growth here in this position? And she's like, well, yeah, I'm moving away part-time of the year to the Caribbean. So you can have a leadership role, blah, 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 blah. And eventually and she said this kind of casually, eventually I would love it if you just like bought this from me. And it was like a casual comment, she said. And that was it. It was like, I was all in, and I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew that one comment was like, it felt so right. And I just thought, like, I don't know what I'm going to do to figure it out, but someday I'm buying this business. And then it was so I turned down the other job. Very short period later, she'd say it a little bit more, and I would say, like, I'm actually really serious. And then the process began of like trying to get financing, and I was a single mom, and like that wasn't happening. I have no family. My father's an addict. Like, it just wasn't something that I could be like, oh, let me just cut you a check for $500,000 here. Like, it just wasn't that, wasn't really an option. So I kept going to banks and kept getting turned away and laughed at, and actually laughed at, which I also often think about as a young woman, with turning out the way that it did, how much I was shut down at the beginning without even being heard. And so, yeah, long story short, because this is getting lengthy, I was able to purchase the business. I had to make some really crazy deals with a bank and with the previous owner to make it happen, but I did. And it's actually quite a wild story, but it's a lengthy one. So come when I'm on stage, I guess, sometime, if anyone's listening to this and they want to hear it, it's a long story, but it worked out. And I made that decision the day I took possession of that first spa, that this was going to change my future. It was going to change my son's future. And I had this opportunity in front of me, and it was up to me to really do something with it. And I committed to myself and to the customers and to the community that I was going to not take this for granted. And I made goals right then, that first day, of what I wanted to do in the next 5 years. And I did it. And then I kept making more goals. And so what started as one little small business of a handful of employees turned into now 5. We've opened 6 locations. I own a couple of other brands and companies, and really went from being a $200,000 business to multi-millions in sales, and massive change in employees and staffing and growth. And it all just started with just like kind of believing in myself. And that's where it started, was that first spa. So now we have one in Saskatoon. Then I opened in Regina, and we became the largest in the province. It was a massive, gorgeous building. And then a couple of years later, we opened in Lloydminster, Alberta. And then after we opened in Lloyd, we opened another location here in Saskatoon. And then after that one, we went back and renovated our first location and expanded it to almost triple the size. And then after that, we opened another location in Regina. And then most recently, we just opened in Calgary. So that's all my spas. And then I started a beauty brand of skincare and cosmetics and nail polish. And then I started a jewelry line during COVID. So I'm always kind of progressing and adding more. I always say I'm a little crazy for taking it all on, but why not?
Yeah. No, that's so amazing. I mean, congratulations.
Thank
it's really remarkable, because in a lot of other people in a similar situation, life situation, wouldn't have been able to kind of create what you have based off of that kernel, that hope, that one comment as it relates to,
It's crazy because statistically it shouldn't have worked out. I don't fit the part. I come from a family of addictions. I was basically homeless twice. I went to women's shelters at 2 different levels of my life, as a child and then as a single mom. I had nothing to my name. I had no money from family backing, nothing like that. So statistically, I probably shouldn't have found success. But the thing is, for me, that I felt like I had nothing to lose. I knew that at the very worst case scenario, I still wasn't going to be a little girl sitting in a women's shelter. And I remember those shelter stays when I was a kid and wanting to die there. It was so hard on my mental health as a child. It was so terrifying. And I think I would refer back to those moments and go like, could be worse, Jess. You could, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out. Well, you tried. You got this opportunity and you tried, but you're not going to be a little girl in a women's shelter. You're not going to be a little girl, a 15-year-old girl on a bus all by yourself ever again. So you've been at the bottom. What is there to lose? And I really had that mentality. So I was just like, well, I'm going to try. I'm going to give it my all. And I did. And then I just started to believe in myself and realize that so much of what we do is in our reach. We just don't have the courage to try to go after it. And once I figured that out, I just thought the sky is, the limit. Why not try? And I mean, I fail at a lot of things I try. I just keep trying. Eventually something's going to work out. And that's why I became a public speaker is because, well, first of all, I never meant to become a public speaker. It just happened. I got invited to do it and then I did it and it helped someone. So then I've kind of continued to do it. But I think if I wouldn't have just kind of gave it a shot, I just don't know if I'd be here, And I think so often in life, we get these opportunities and we just don't believe in ourselves. So we don't do it. We don't think we're smart enough. We don't think we're talented enough. We're not strong enough. We're not brave enough. And sometimes you don't have to be any of those things. You just need to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Jump and then figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. That brings me to kind of two thoughts. Like one, one of the prerequisites of being an entrepreneur is grit, tenacity, perseverance, and the fact that you have already been through and overcome hard things was almost like the perfect training to be an entrepreneur because,
Totally.
Oh, like how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to do this? How am I going to deal with this people issue or whatever the case may be? It's like, oh, but that's nothing compared to being in a homeless shelter.
Right. But I think, and for entrepreneurs that maybe didn't start that way, that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It's like a roller coaster that never ends. Like, and every entrepreneur will say the same. It is like you're at the highest high and you're like, oh my God, I'm nailing it. I'm so good at this job. And then the next day you're like, oh, I'm terrible. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a failure. And I don't know any entrepreneur that hasn't had those roller coaster moments. And so I started out with a lot of grit. So I was able to push through, but a lot of entrepreneurs just figure it out and realize and learn the grit as they go. I started consulting and mentoring entrepreneurs for that reason, because I think it's so easy when you're in that moment of like the low part to be like, this ain't for me. This is not for me. Like I'm throwing in the towel. I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. When really you just need sometimes someone to say like, this is part of the process. Just trust the process. It sucks right now, but I promise just push through it. You'll get through it. Believe in yourself, get support, get help. And you will have those highs and lows, but expecting the lows is part of the process. If you're going to, entrepreneurship is not for you if you get hit with that first blow and you're like, oh, okay, it ain't for me, because it's going to continue. Even when you're at the highlight, I was at the highlight of my career and I had my whole world fall apart. I had won multiple awards and started winning national awards and had all these businesses and everything was going amazing. I was remarried, I had kids, and my father died very tragically from his addiction. My best friend passed away and my stepmom committed suicide, all within a really short period of time. And I thought there was nothing in my business world life that could knock me off my path. And that completely derailed me. And I had to find a way to like pull myself back together and get up and get going again, and find some peace and motivation and fulfillment again. And I had to basically crawl back up from the bottom. And it doesn't matter at what level you're at in your entrepreneurship journey, life is going to happen. You don't stop being human. And so I think part of entrepreneurship is just like rolling with the punches, if that makes sense, like rolling with like just being prepared that it's going to be like anything in life. There's highs and there's lows, and get your support system and just be prepared to like push through and keep going. And you'll develop grit as you go. Every entrepreneur, day one versus day, 5 years from now, are very different people, right?
Oh, by necessity and just, inevitably, right? I wanted to ask you when those those three events happened at the, ascension as it relates to your business and professional life, um, was part of the motivation to get going again also the fact and the weight that so many people's lives depended on you at that point? Just it wasn't just about you at that point, right?
That was the only reason that I got up. If it would have been just me, I probably would have stayed down a lot longer, but I kept going like, everyone's depending on me. This isn't just me. This is the livelihoods. And, being in the beauty industry, for example, isn't exactly, Wall Street. It's like, these are young women, young men that are in this industry that are just starting out and getting their feet on the ground. And I knew that this was life or death for them. This is their survival. This is their livelihoods. And I had to like find a way to pull myself through it. And there's a lot of perks with being a business owner and an entrepreneur. And I'm so grateful. And I will always feel so grateful for everything that comes with that. But, we don't get things like a leave. I remember going to my doctor and she's like, you need to go on a stress leave. Like, you need to, you're like, this isn't good, that you're going to end up in the hospital or dead. And I was like, that I don't have that ability. I don't have the option to take him. And the amount of times she said that to me over the years, like, you need to go on a mental health leave. I'm like, that's not possible for me. So I had to really work to develop a situation in my business that gave me the ability to be able to step back. And that meant relying on other people and giving other people opportunities and roles within my company, and then growing bigger to be able to afford that, those positions, so that I could, when I needed to take a leave, I could take a leave, because I hated that feeling of barely pulling myself off the ground to get up and go because I had no other option. And so just learning how to like do that. But for a long time, it was just hell. Everybody's counting on me, like, get up, you gotta keep going. And then, I mean, something my dad taught me very early, and I think he learned it from his mom, was it's just one day at a time, one step in front of the other. Don't think a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, think tomorrow. And that's kind of how I got through those first days of like blur, when it was all really crazy and I felt like I was at an all-time low.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I turned it into good. I decided to make decisions to, like, it hurt so bad and I wanted to do something that brought positivity from it. So with my dad, it started with my dad. When my dad died, he died so tragically. And I remember thinking, why did it have to happen like that? Why was it so awful? Why did it have to be this way? And I kept saying, why? And then I'm like, well, I'll never know the answer to that. So if I can find a reason to help me do something good with it, it might change the perspective. And so I started doing like these really positive things that I never probably would have done had that not sparked that fired me to do. And so now of course, I'm still sad every time like I think about losing him the way that we did. I also get to think about like the really beautiful things that we've done that he would be so proud of, and that wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have lost him the way that we did. So it's making choices and like picking myself and going like, I can't change what happened, but I can change how I respond to it. And how I respond to this is not to add more darkness to the world. It is to try to put a little light out there. And that's how it started. And now it's become, my whole life purpose is to try to put light into life in as many ways as I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no-obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of. Crown Rust Protection. Picture this: your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield, it's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Today's episode is brought to you by Motive, a leading venture builder with over a decade of experience helping corporates and startups build, launch, and scale successful business ventures. Whether you're looking to innovate your business model, develop a game-changing product, or craft a winning go-to-market strategy, Motive is with you every step of the way. Their proven venture building process and technologies help reduce risks and accelerate time to market. Innovation is everywhere. Let's harness it together. Visit motive.digital to learn more. That's Motive spelled M-O-T-I-V.
Yeah, there's so many also forks in the road as it relates to life. And just when you mentioned as it relates to that one opportunity that you had with the judge and it's going to pay a lot more. And then there was something there as it relates to the spa. And then when you heard about, or there was the idea entered your mind and onto your heart as it relates to being able to own the spa. Mm-hmm. Maybe taking me back to that time is like what, like people are searching for that moment where there's like such clarity that you just know this is going to happen and you know it's supposed to happen.
In the moment, I mean, it's easy for me to say it now, right? But it's like, oh, it was perfectly clear. It wasn't. In the moment, I struggled hard with that. I was like, I think I'm making a mistake. Like, am I making a mistake? Am I an idiot? Like, is everybody thinking? And I was asking other people for advice, which not a good idea because people don't have the emotion connected to it. So of course it was like, take the better paying job. That's better. That's the more better position for your child. You know, that's, but I had to trust my gut and my heart. And I've led my life with heart, emotion. And I just kept thinking, if this doesn't work, because maybe it won't, maybe she'll change her mind, whatever, I was going to either open my own or go work somewhere else that I could become a leader. And even if it wouldn't have been that direct, exact thing, I knew that exact business. I mean, I knew that it had redirected my desire for where I wanted to spend my time and my career and my heart, because I knew I was really good at it. And I just, once I made that decision, it was like weight off my shoulders, because I was like, it just felt good. And it should. When you have a big decision to make, yes, you want to think smart. Obviously, you want to make a smart decision. But if it doesn't feel right in your gut and in your heart, you're probably not making the right decision. And that's what it came down to for me. I probably would have not struggled as much as I did for that next 4 or 5 years, you know, to put food on the table and stuff. But in the long run, it was just so much better. And I think we sometimes jump to the first quick fix, right? And just trusting like that gut feeling and that your heart, like, does it make you happy though? Because we spend so much of our lives working for someone else and at a job. Like, if you have the opportunity to do something you love for a little bit less versus making really good money, but doing something you don't like, maybe that's good for some people, but it wasn't for me. I wanted to feel the way that I felt, making these clients feel that way every day. It was like, I could be having the worst day with what was going on in my world, my dad and all the things. And I'd make people smile all day. And by the end of the day, I was like kind of feeling good. because it feels good to make other people feel good. And so for me, it was kind of like a light bulb of like a no-brainer. If I can be happy, I can't say you'll always find more success that way, because that's maybe not fair to say, but I think if you lead with your heart and make smart decisions. I mean, I'm not going to volunteer and do it forever and hope that I win the lottery, but it has to be an educated decision. But it felt pretty clear to me at the time. And I remember going those days where I was like trying to give notice and wasn't sure, and I was sick. I couldn't sleep. I was like nauseous. I was like shaking at work. I had such bad anxiety. And then the night that I like decided and I ripped up the letter, I slept like a baby. Like it just felt like the weight was off I had no idea what I was going to do or how I was going to get there, but it just felt right. So I think sometimes we just ignore those gut feelings. And I guess my suggestion would be to just try to listen to that and dive into that lean into that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It makes me think about, I think it was Jim Carrey, where his father was an accountant or something safe, secure, and his father got laid off. And then so in his mind is like, well, if you can actually do something that is like secure and safe, but doesn't really make you happy, and that could all still get taken away, might as well do something that makes you happy.
Right. At the end of the day, it's your life, and life is so short, and you just get this one life. It seems like, I did so many, I hate to use the word crap jobs, because like I'm very grateful for every job I've ever had. My dad always taught me, like, you be grateful that you even have, a position, because some people are looking for jobs forever and don't get them. So, but I just think you gotta make the best out of those moments. And if you have the choice to do something that you love and it feels good and it makes sense, I think try. Worst case, you can always go back and be an accountant then, if that's, I could have still 5 years from then, I still had my education. I could have still went back and worked for a judge. Maybe it would have been that judge. Maybe it would have been someone else. Might have taken me longer, but at least I tried. And I think that was just kind of what I kept going back to, is like, am I going to regret this if I don't even at least try and give it a shot?
Yeah. No, congratulations. That is amazing. And obviously, so many things that you had to go through.
But we all do, right? Like we all go through things, and my story is no heavier or harder necessarily than the next person's. The reason I share it is to remind others that, like, just because it isn't easy doesn't mean we shouldn't try, and that goal isn't reachable. And you get to make choices, and you do get to make decisions for your own life. We really do. And you just have to slow yourself down and slow days down and think about the decisions you're making. Statistically, I probably should have become an addict. I knew I genetically had that in my blood, and I was very conscious about that from a young age, of like, I don't want to struggle with that. I don't want to go that direction. So I made a conscious decision to like make sure that was not going to be a part of my life personally. However, I ended up in a relationship with someone who struggled with addictions, and I could have stayed there, because statistically that's what happens. You either become an addict yourself or you end up with an addict. And I had to make a decision and a choice, like, this isn't where I want to be, and I don't want that in my life. And I had to redirect myself. And I think in life, sometimes we're like, well, this is what was handed to me, so this is the life that I got given, so it is what it is, and I'm just doomed. Instead of going like, yeah, that sucks, but I'm going to try to take some steps the other direction and change it for myself. And I think that's why I like speaking at high school so much, is because they're in a position of, they don't even know what's in front of them yet. And I don't want them to decide that, well, I come from this life, this is all that I'm ever going to be, or this is all that I'm ever going to have, because you do get to make choices that can completely change that if you want to, and if you have the courage to try.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic and meaningful work that you're doing, because, inevitably there's that saying, like, seeing to be, right? Like, they have to see in order to believe that it's possible.
Yeah.
And if people are in a shitty situation now, telling your story also gives them the possibility and hope that it doesn't always have to be this way, right?
Yeah, and that you can give them the courage that, like, you can do it. So I always think I never would have believed it. if I was that 15-year-old sitting in that room, the auditorium, when I'm speaking to schools, or even, 21-year-old or 25-year-old or 30-year-old when I'm in a bigger event, I don't know that I would have believed what I was saying if I not like heard it and seen it with my own eyes, which is why I like think it's so important for me to explain the whole story. That's the only reason I share all of that stuff, is to say, like, I promise you, I didn't think I was gonna go this way. Like, and I just took a chance on myself and it worked. Like, you can be so much more and you can do so much more than you think. And I always see myself, it's so weird how it happens, but I'll be in an auditorium and I can see like little 15-year-old Jess, and I'm just like talking to myself, like, I promise you, it gets better if you want it to, and because there's no one really, when you're in chaos like that, whether you're 15 or you're 30 or you're 50, I don't know that there's anyone really there saying, like, I've been through it, you can do it. I know you can. Like, I know you can, and so being that little bit of a cheerleader in your corner. And so, I mean, I try. That's like all the hope I can have, is that somebody in that room connects with it and they go like, oh, if she can do it, maybe I can too.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the stages that you have gone through as it relates to becoming the type of business owner that you are today, inevitably you would appreciate this, like, one location is different than two locations. That's a step. And then two locations to multiple locations. And then inevitably your role changes. And then, so what resources, and some of the changes were obviously born by pain, as we talked about,
Yeah.
but what resources did you have access to? How did you evolve as a leader in order to be able to scale the way that you have?
I mean, I had to fall on my face for me to figure it out. First of all, I had to I can do everything by myself. I don't need any help. And then I fell on my face and burned out and did it all terribly and made a lot of mistakes and wasn't my best self, wasn't the best leader. I'm sure I wasn't a great leader to a lot of people back then. I was 21 years old. I was just learning as I went. But I think some of the biggest keys for me were delegation, learning that other people's value, you need to value them, recognizing their potential and their education and their experience, and how much better they are than you at some things, and not being threatened by that. Somebody else in your company saying like, hey, Jess, I have this other idea instead of what you were doing. I'm trying this, and not being like, how dare you challenge me? I'm the leader, and instead embracing it and going like, wow, you're way better at that than I am. And not getting threatened by it and welcoming it, embracing it. And I learned, it has been my best lesson I've ever learned, is utilizing the incredible people that join this journey with you. And I have the best team. So when I say it is not like a one-woman show, like, there's no way I would still have my one location if it was just me. It's just not possible. My directors are so involved and so dedicated and so loyal and so motivated and so driven and so much better at so many things than I am. And I think the smartest decision I ever made in business was hiring really great people to help me do this. And then we have grown. So it allows me to be good at what I'm good at by not wasting hours of my time trying to do something that person can do in 10 minutes. For example, like, I used to do our website, I used to do our bookkeeping, and I was spending hours and not sleeping and doing all these things for someone else to come and be like, oh, I got that. And they'd like, and they'd be done. I'm like, did you just seriously do that in like 20 minutes? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, great. That took me 8 hours, and learning like how silly it was of me to try to be like, but I could save money by doing that myself. So learning that was a really, really big key. That was massive for me, was delegation. And before I took on the next, before scaling up, before I took on the next project, making sure that one was solid. So then I'd take on the next one and really work and really dedicate and make sure that one was good, and then take on the next. So that was number one. And then the second piece of this would be building my network of support systems. Now, you can talk to your friends, you can talk to your family, you can talk to your spouse, but unless you're speaking to another entrepreneur, they're never going to get it the same way. It's just not by any fault of theirs. They just won't understand it because they're not in the grit of it, and they don't understand the highs and lows. So learning to really build that network and embrace that of other people that are doing what you do is priceless. The amount of problem solving that will happen in 5 minutes of talking to a fellow entrepreneur or two is wild, because they've probably been through something similar. They'll have some feedback, they'll have some trial and errors. So building that network of entrepreneurs for me really is when I felt like I started to find some success, is when I really like started to build that network and went like, wow, I'm strong on my own, but are we powerful together as a group? And so joining different associations and different groups, and then just having friends and friendships with other owners. That networking piece is just key. So I would say those are like my two biggest, like, I wouldn't be where I am if I wouldn't have had that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great for you to share, because it's one of those things I say, like, owners or entrepreneurs, they either intentionally or unintentionally join a club. And it's one of those things where you can go to someone that is not in that position and be like, so I was on the bathroom floor crying, and then you go to the club and they're like, oh, when was your last, on the floor crying?
Like, you were? I was too. What time were you doing that at? Like, why didn't you call me? I was also crying. I know. You celebrate together, you cry together, and you walk each other through some of the hard moments. And it really is something that's not talked about enough. I mean, it's getting better and better as I've seen through entrepreneurship in my career, over my career span. I've noticed such a difference in, the different business associations and entrepreneurial like groups and networks and events and all the different things. It's night and day from when it was when I started. I felt so alone. I felt completely like I was in territory, like in deep water. I didn't know what I was doing. And now I like really love meeting those people and saying like, we got you, we've been there, And so I strongly, strongly support those programs, because gosh, they are like life to an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think you touched on this before, but I was curious as to, well, I guess you shared many instances of hard things that have happened, challenging things in your life, but perhaps you can share an instance where there was something difficult that you went through, but it resulted in something positive or unexpected that came out the other side.
Well, I mean, my whole career has been that way. Public speaking, for example, I did it as a favor. One time, just there were some students that were struggling, and I was asked to come speak at their school, and so I did. And I like had never shared anything before, and the students reached out after and were like, "Oh my gosh, like I never even thought about life outside of my home after I turned 18," And then things with my dad, and things with my girlfriend who passed away from breast cancer, and my stepmom, and all the things. Those are drastic things, but like there's lots of little things in between. But I made choices after to say like, okay, this sucked, this hurt. I'm going to turn it into something beautiful and positive, and kind of keep that positivity and that light going. And so I started a foundation that helps support families of addiction. We donate so much time and money to different charities, whether it's like the breast cancer awareness or ovarian cancer or mental health. Canadian Mental Health Association, we do a lot with my jewelry line. We donate lots back to that. We do all sorts of different fundraisers, and I'm involved in so many different, I've got my hand in so many different things at once, giving back to all of these things, because it feels good to know that something positive has come out of something dark. And when I realized that with my dad, when my dad passed away and I started the foundation, and I started like helping other families, like the wives, the moms, the sisters, the sons that were living that, I saw a little spark, like a little light of like, oh, something positive finally out of something so gross and so awful and so hurtful and dark and gray. And so then I was like, wow, you can actually make something beautiful out of something awful. And the more I did that, the better the hard things felt. So it was very therapeutic at first. And then I started to realize like, what if I brought together the community and we did this as a team? What if my teams did this? What if we like across the board and all of our companies started this fundraiser? What if we did this? And you start to realize the impact grew and grew. And what once was like this dark moment turned into something that's so beautiful and flourishing and magic, you know? It just feels so good, but it also is just unexpected because it doesn't typically come from something dark, right? But I think in every aspect of my career, that has happened. I've tried to take every moment that I've had and say, like, I can't control how much this hurts. I can't control how hard this was or how painful it was, but I can control how I make the next person feel or what we do with this situation or the light that I'm going to create or provide or do the good. And it's a pretty powerful feeling to know that you have a choice. You get choices to make, right?
100%. You can't control what happens, like you said, but you can control how you react to it, right?
Yeah. And there's no better feeling than putting light in the world, even when on your darkest days. If I'm having really bad days, my girlfriends always can tell because I say, you can tell if I'm having a really rough week or a really bad day. We just had a really massive flood in one of my spas, like probably $100,000 in damage. And this has happened multiple times. And it's extremely stressful as any entrepreneur that has had flooding. So it's very stressful. And I just like, when I'm like, oh my God, I'm so mad or I'm grouchy and I'm miserable. I'm like, hey, I gotta do something good. And my girlfriends laugh because all of a sudden they'll be getting like, you know, gift baskets on their doorstep or a handwritten note or like something, because it helps me heal, but it also feels so good to make someone else feel good. And so often it now has become my like therapy when I'm struggling, instead of getting mad and ranting and, you know, complaining, because you want to when there's 4 feet of water on the floor. I'll try to do something really like, even if it's just something little, like sending a note and saying like, to my kid's teacher and saying like, you know what, you're an amazing teacher. You inspired them. Thank you so much for all you do. You probably don't get this enough. Like, just, I don't know, showing kindness, I guess, that random act of kindness. But yeah, it's crazy when you think about the power that you really do have in turning gray clouds into sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the vision and what is next for you, the businesses? Any insights or comments or coming soon?
I get asked that every time I speak, every time I'm on stage, every time I'm in a school, every time I'm at a women's event. I never give away too much because I'm a bit superstitious and like I don't want to jinx anything, but I always have a couple things in the works, you know, and some of them will probably fail and fall on my face, but I think that's just like, I mean, you have to fall on your face if you're going to reach success. You just have to. And it's like, you should be proud of yourself that you tried and that you fell on your face, because I think a lot of people are scared to even do it. But I have a couple things in the works, but right now, after coming off just such a crazy year, I'm speaking around Canada quite a bit this next few months, which I'm so excited about because I just always love meeting new people, whether it's like a business event like the one that I was at that you were there for, or it's a school or it's college or it's a fundraiser or whatever it is. Like, just there's always someone in that room that needs it so bad, and I get so excited knowing that like I'm going to try to help them through this journey, and I'm going to be the Jess that this Jess needed, you know, when I was going through it. So I'm doing that in the next probably 6 months. It's crazy. I'm kind of all over. I don't know if I'm going to expand anymore. I'd probably consider maybe some franchises or something where I'm not the one doing all the work every day, all the time. But I'm in the season of my family, my husband, my kids. To me, I just really am taking the time to be with them when I can be. And they're getting older and they're like, you know, fleeing the nest. Yeah. And I hate it. My mom hates it. So for the first time in my career, I can say I'm equally really focused on doing nothing.
Yeah. Amazing.
I'll do a lot, but then I'm also going to do a lot of nothing, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
About it. Except that when I like do nothing for too long, I'll come up with some crazy new wild business idea. So that's just how my brain works. But I am excited to kind of, I don't know what the future holds. We'll see.
Yeah. hero's journey, personal legend, like purpose, if someone were to ask you what that is for you, what would you say?
What my purpose is?
Yes.
I have always believed since I was a little girl that I was meant to help people, period. In whatever it was that I'm doing, whether it's at the spa and we're helping them just have it's so much more than like painting their nails or making their skin feel good. It's like giving them a moment of like escape or tranquility when their life is chaos. You don't know what people are going through. And that is so true now more than ever before. Like you never know what someone's struggling with, right? And so if I can give them an hour, so that in that regard, helping people, I've always wanted to create careers and give people opportunity in an industry that was primarily a job, not a career. The beauty industry was like, you do it for a couple of years and that's it. Well, we have dozens of staff that have been with us over 10 or 15 years and building careers and giving them pension and all the things that you don't usually get in this business, helping people. And then my foundation was to help people. Mentoring other entrepreneurs is to help people, speaking on stage to help people. I think it is just who I am to my core, that if I can help someone, I always will. And it's a quote my dad, and I end every speech that I say with this, but my dad used to say this. He used to say all the time, sometimes in life, just people just need help. Sometimes they just need a little help. And if you have the opportunity, you have the ability to be able to help them, then you should at least try. It doesn't mean you have to go above and beyond and wildly but if you can help someone that's in need, you should. And that just always stuck with me. And so I really feel like that is like my legacy. That's what I want. And I hope that I leave this world a little better than it was before me, I guess, even in the tiniest, littlest way. And then, like I said before, when I'm speaking to someone in a room, and I don't care if they're 70 years old or they're 16 years old, if I connected with them and helped them even a fraction of what they need at that moment, then I've done my job, and I can sleep at night knowing that it was worth it. It was all worth it.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that because it just ties in with the title of this podcast, Between Two Dots, being birth and death, and just living that meaningful, intentional life. Before we wrap, I wanted to pass the floor over to you. Obviously, we'll get your team to pass on links and other resources, but wanted to give you the opportunity to let our listeners know how to connect, how to find you, draw any attention to anything that you're passionate about. The floor is yours.
So the best way to connect with me, my website is jesstetu.com. I'm active on social media. So Instagram, primarily Facebook, a little bit on TikTok. Same, just my name @Jess Tetu. I do respond to every single message that ever comes to me, even after I do an event. If I get like 500 messages, it might take me a few days, but I will respond to every single one. I do read every single one. I love connecting with people. It is what fills my heart. Everything I'm doing in all areas of my career are shared there. So you'll always kind of know what's going on, what's happening next, what's going on in my world, whether it's flooding or kids or business. My spas are justforyoudaySpa.com. And we have them all over Canada, like I said. My jewelry line, which donates back to the Canadian Mental Health Association, that is named after my late grandmother, is Iconic Betty. And my skincare line is Leah Reese. And all of that can be found at leahreese.com, LIAREESE.com. Everything is there. But again, just my jesstetu.com is for everything is there. It's who I am. It's all my brands. They're all in kind of one place. My public speaking, my entrepreneurship, mentorship program, all of that is through my website as well. So that's the easiest way to reach me. And like I said, I'm always available to chat. People ask me business questions every day or life questions. I have students reach out. So I love connecting.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for this conversation. I certainly enjoyed it, and I'm sure my listeners will too. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.